All right, guys, welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Homefront Podcast. This episode is sponsored by Chexi. If you want to earn rewards on your rent payments, click the first link down below in the description. We'll talk a little bit more about them later in the show. Anyways, Brooke, how you doing?
I'm good.
What's
Things
going
are
on?
heating up. I feel my phone getting busier and busier by the day.
It's good.
Things are just popping up. I usually can tell how busy the market is by how busy my phone is.
Your phone rings.
Yes. How about you?
Just working on some things for getting a listing going, and people aren't that motivated to jump all over things, but that's okay. Taking their time.
January.
It's nice. Yeah, it's still January.
Like, we forget that there's a seasonal aspect to real estate too. That, all of this political stuff is happening and Bank of Canada and the interest rates, but normally December and January are quite slow.
Yeah, I'm interesting to see how everything goes this year because there's been so much bad news.
I know.
Like, it's not even like I'm trying to be like this bear. It's
We don't
like,
try to only
yeah,
deliver
it's just
bad
like
news. We just
the
deliver
news
the
is
headlines.
just so horrible. Yeah, but I obviously in the long term we think things will get better. But
You know what we should do? We should find all those like happy news channels, like one good thing to end each podcast. Like on a lighter note, this just happened.
Yeah, that's probably good. That's probably not a bad idea.
I think people would like that.
Well, I think we have a good flow on today's show. So the first thing we're going to talk about is Canada's immigration exodus. So Canadian policymakers have been worried about temporary residents overstaying their visa. Remember we talked about this? Yeah. Like, how are they going to get people out of here?
I still am baffled that there's no system.
Yeah.
So they accept permanent residents or
non-permanent residents.
Non-permanent residents to come. And then there's no exit strategy. They just cross their fingers.
Yeah. Like, well their visa expired.
Track, right? So
yeah, so Stats Canada data tracks it. Yeah.
Okay, because when they do population counts, right, wouldn't they know that they're still there? Or they just do it by household, right?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually don't know how they fully calculate it, but
It's going to be an AI system soon enough.
I know.
The problem is not going to exist in the
even
next
for voting, I feel like it'll be like that. Anyways, that'll come. So Canadian policymakers worried about temporary residents overstaying their visas can rest easy. Statistics Canada data shows that non-permanent residents left the country in record volumes in Q3 of 2024. So last year, about 250,000 non-permanent residents left in Q3 of 2024, which was an increase of 85% versus 2023. Note this outflow was back in Q3 before the government of Canada made immigration changes. So remember, the government of Canada has paused immigration, saying, we've overdone it. So this is before then. So you had people leaving before them. At the time, policymakers were still trying to attract more temporary residents and churn more people. Although there was an outflow, there was still a positive number of 296,000 more non-permanent residents arriving than left in the quarter. So more people did arrive than leave. But it's been an increase in the number of people that we actually saw left. So most people come as a non-permanent resident, hoping to get the golden ticket to stay in Canada.
Okay. So they have a system to track the people that are leaving on the non-permanent resident card, or whatever it is.
Yeah, and people arriving as well.
Okay, so it sounds like they do have a system rather than crossing their fingers like we were kind of talked about.
Yeah, well, I think that it was more like, I think it was in the House of Commons when they were asking Mark Miller, being like, well, how are you going to track it? And he did say, well, their visa's expired, and due to the their contract or whatever they signed, they do have to leave once it's expired if they don't get their residency.
Right. And what would be a reason for them not getting their residency after being here for, let's say, 5 years on a non-permanent residency card?
I don't know fully, but I think it's that you decide to leave. That's always an option. Yeah. Work, I guess. Like, do you have a job set up? How have you been working? Those kind of things.
Right.
And the number of residencies that they can give out. So what we've seen is now they're saying, we're not giving these out anymore.
Interesting.
So a lot of people, it's tough because I think that they marketed it as like live, stay, and work in Canada. So they attracted people that way, whose ultimate goal was to stay here. But at the end of the day, a visa is temporary for the most part, right? Like,
yeah, and I guess when it expires, most jobs look into, do you have a work visa? Are you a Canadian citizen? So if you don't have that, then you're not going to be able to get a job. You can't buy a house currently.
Yeah.
foreign buyers ban if your visa is expired. So there are things that maybe push you out once it's expired. I'm sure there's some people that find the loopholes.
Yeah. My friend was the condo I sold in Toronto. He was from Singapore, and I remember him saying, I was like, "Oh, I just need to do the FinTrack for you."
Yeah.
And I was like, "I just need to confirm you're a Canadian citizen."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, no, I'm a PR, permanent resident." So it's like, but yeah, you can still buy a house if you're a PR. But I was like, for a second there, I was like, "Oh no, did I just I just do something wrong here?"
We had offers last night on a condo in Oakville, and people are starting to put these clauses in the offer that basically they put it back on us if the seller was a non-permanent resident or a non-Canadian citizen or something. I looked into it. I'm like, I've never seen that one before.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense though, because I think if they close, like they could be on the hook for
the tax
penalty.
implications.
Yeah, which is insane.
If you're non-permanent, if you're not a Canadian citizen and you sell, I make a profit. Like we pay capital gains, but if you're a non-Canadian resident, there's tax implications, and they would handle that based on their tax record, whatever it is. So, but if you buy a house from a non-Canadian citizen that didn't pay their tax and say they just sold their place and left, the buyer would actually be on the hook, which is wild. So seeing those clauses come up is actually smart, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
Usually the lawyer would find that though in title search. So the clause is like double protection, because that is something lawyer looks into and works out the tax in the title search period, which is prior to closing.
Yeah.
But it's always important to have a good lawyer.
Yeah, no, it is true. And I guess the whole point of this, there's a few points in, having people leave is that Canada isn't as attractive as it was. Like, I think that's obvious. There's not a lot of work. Like you're seeing the unemployment rate in youth skyrocket. It's double digits. And housing is very expensive. Taxes are high. Like there's just a lot of things where you're like, okay, if that many people left when they were recruiting people, what's it going to be like this year when the tap's turned off? Like how many people are going to, with expiring visas, or just willingly be like, it's just too expensive here, leave. So that's like kind of a wonder of mine, that, and a theme that I think will continue next year. More people will leave.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what does that do to rent? Well,
do
you want to read the next one?
I've noticed the rental market just really in the past year.
I've actually got a good story too after.
Okay, so asking rents in Canada declined 3% in 2024. The decline in rents last year followed growth of 8.6% in 2023 and 12.1% in 2022, representing the first time that rents experienced an annual decrease since COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, when rents fell 5.4%. Overall, rents increased by a total of 16.8% over the past 5 years, which equates to an average of 3.15% per year. December marked the 5th consecutive month of rent declines. Between September and December, average asking rents fell by 3.8%, indicating a steepening decline for rents heading into 2025.
So this is the thesis that you and I created on the show, and other people too. But is that less demand on rental? Like if you put rent prices beside population growth, I bet you it would track it would track quite.
There's definitely a correlation because non-permanent residents can't buy a house. Okay. So the people that are on a visa, you can, because there's a ban.
Students.
Before you were able to, now you cannot until that ban is lifted. I think that ban came out in 2023, January 2023. So this will actually be that 2 years. We're in January now. I think it came out January 17th. It actually should be approaching that 2-year timeline that they put it out for. I wonder if they're extending it or what's going to happen with that. That's something we should probably look into.
Well, we don't know who's going to be in government.
Right.
I guess that's a big thing. Well, I think whoever is in government though will continue the ban, given the housing market is still wildly unaffordable.
Right. Yeah. So those people that are coming in go straight to the rental market, right?
Yep.
And then a lot of the projects that were stalled during the COVID pandemic are now to completion. Like some that were supposed to be ready, let's say 2021, and then some 2022, like we're flooded with Toronto condos, and we're flooded with them now that they're complete after many delays with vacancies. And then with that amount of inventory, obviously landlords need to become more competitive to attract a tenant. Otherwise you're going to stay vacant, right? So I think it all kind of ties into each other. I think there's a lot of
I think so too. So
factors.
My story was that landlords are still very I think they don't understand what kind of market they're in. So I just had friends of mine. We were looking to buy,
Okay.
and then they decided that they wanted to rent for a year, just given that they've never lived together. They're a couple.
Fair.
I was like, that's totally fair. I think that everyone should do that before buying a house.
Yeah.
So we found a place. It was listed at like 3,350. They just dropped it to 2,900 because it was previously leased out at 3,200 last year. So the year came up. So now they dropped the price. So it's funny to know, like a year over year, it's down $300.
Yeah.
So they have over, like, one was like an 830 credit score, 840 combined. They made well over six figures. And it was just a couple, just them two. And they said no to them. Yeah. Because they didn't have rental history. And I said, well, you know, they were saving up for a house, living with their parents. And they said no. And I was like, but they have payment history.
Yeah, their credit score and credit report would show history of payments to credit cards, and
it was impeccable. They shouldn't even be renters, but it made sense for the time being.
If they can get a mortgage and the landlord's saying no, that's wild.
They could get a mortgage for close to $1 million. So, you know, I went back to the lady and I said, look, like they're like the best you could get on paper. Like what, you know, no pets, no smoking, no anything. And I was like, this is the best case scenario for someone, because if they did have rent history, you know, I'm not saying that all renters are bad, you know, but usually when people rent, it's because they don't have the money for a down payment, or they don't have money to buy a home. So like these should be homeowners, but they're taking some time off away from it. So like it's even better. And it was just a no.
What?
And I actually said, give me a call in 2 weeks when this is still sitting here. Because, you know, it was like a February 1st close. Right. Like it was everything you could ever want, but
that's crazy.
In this market too. And it was a condo. So it's like
interesting, because
very, very slow market.
I wonder if there's something else going on, because that to me sounds, what do you even say to your clients? They said no.
I honestly just read them the text that I got. I was like, this is crazy. Like, I understand. Like, they were so frustrated, so gutted. Like, they're just ready to move in together. And yeah.
Wow.
But, yeah, it was sad. Yeah.
That is sad.
Anyways, but to each their own. You know, they own the property. But this is why I like purpose-built rentals.
Yeah.
It's because they would take them in a heartbeat.
Right. And there's more of those coming up.
Tons.
Yeah.
I live in one.
It's
fantastic.
Yeah. Well, even profit margins too, like builders running numbers on a purpose-built rental compared to making them into condos and selling them, just how much it costs to build and carrying costs and the construction loans and all of that compared to just long-term rentals and holding them, just the numbers work better.
They're great. They gave it, you know, at Christmas time, they gave everyone chocolates, and they have like an annual inspection, and they came in and they're like, what's wrong? And I was like, well, the hot water doesn't work here. The light doesn't work here. This fell off here. And one day they just came into the unit, fixed it all. And then they just left us a little note and just said, you know, everything's fixed. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, you see landlords in Hamilton taking applications that maybe they wouldn't have taken prior to a market like this. So it's interesting that this is happening. That happened in Toronto. I think this might be a one-off landlord that maybe has had a bad experience or something.
Because I've had people, no job, you know,
I know.
Or, you know, just like stringing things together. She doesn't have a job, but like she works here for cash, and like it was all like legitimate. Like worked for one guy, worked for Rate Hub. You know, the lady worked somewhere else. I can't remember what company, but it was crazy to see. But you were speaking about Hamilton. I know you wanted to touch on something about Hamilton too, right?
Yeah. Oh, the tax. So that is news to everybody, and there's petitions going around. So currently, land transfer tax in Hamilton is about not fully 1%. Let's say you buy a house for $1 million.
It's provincial.
Yeah. So it's provincial land transfer. So you're going to pay about 10 grand in land transfer. If you bought that same house in Toronto, you pay provincial and municipal land transfer tax. So Toronto is actually double.
But your overall tax is less, right? Like usually?
Yeah. Hamilton is a little bit higher. Niagara is actually surprisingly quite high in terms of your yearly tax that you pay for your home, but not crazy. Like there's some parts of Toronto that have high tax.
Yeah.
Like my houses are about $5 grand, I'd say, a year in property tax, and if I had that same house in Toronto, I'm sure.
I think it goes off assessed value. So I think Toronto's is less, but when you get hit with that double land transfer, like my friend just bought a place there with me, and he was like, it's like $100,000.
Yeah.
And it's the first time home buyer benefit, and he's still paying $100 grand.
$100 grand in
land transfer. Because it's double. Yeah, he bought an expensive home.
Okay.
It was.
I'm thinking what?
It was like three, close to 3, but It still is quite mind blowing that that 100 grand
$100,000.
just to buy a house,
So, okay,
to
so we're
transfer
talking
the
about
deed.
3 million is 100 grand in Toronto. So currently in Hamilton, it's half of that because you're only paying provincial land transfer tax. So you'd pay 50 grand in that scenario, which is still high because somebody commented on my story on Instagram saying, I think it was a $700,000 house in this case that I posted, and they said land transfer in Calgary would be in the
Zero.
hundreds. I think it's 350 or something. It's very
Yeah.
different. I
They
don't
have
want to
yeah,
quote anything.
they don't have any land transfer there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or it's
Right. So
minimal.
even 50 grand, like that's astronomical. So Hamilton is proposing to add a municipal land transfer tax. So Hamilton would become similar to Toronto in the cost of land transfer. So when you are buying a new house, it's on the buyer to pay land transfer. When you're a seller, you don't pay it unless you buy another house, of course. So there's a petition going around of Hamilton residents not wanting this to come to fruition. And there's already, I don't even know how many votes. So there's a little bit of an uprise, but it makes sense, right? It just slapped with another thing. Like Hamilton's one of those cities where it's still, yes, it's unaffordable in a grand scheme of things, right? Just compared to, when we talk about the States and Calgary, it's still up there. However, compared to other parts of the GTA, it's still like a major city where there is affordable housing relative to the GTA.
Right. Like you can get a home for, you can get a good house in Hamilton for 650.
Yeah.
Which I know
house.
we understand that's not.
Yeah.
But relative to other,
that's
so it's
awesome.
surroundings, it's not,
and
it's you have
jobs
two incomes,
and transit and tons of hospitals and multiple highways. So it is a major city where prices are affordable. Usually you have to go quite far out to find a house of that price. And typically they don't have the infrastructure like Hamilton does. So that coming out has definitely caused an uproar. The petition is going around. Type it in on Google if you want to sign it. So we'll see what happens with that. But there has to be a reason as to why they're doing this, right? So you tax the owners of a city more because, a reason of we need to build more infrastructure. We need to build more community centers. So
firefighters.
Right. So
police,
they're obviously lacking in some regard that they want to use that money to do something with it that will benefit the overall community more than, I guess, than how much it hurts them paying double land transfer.
They need more money. Yeah. Yeah. That's basically the bottom line is that they haven't been smart with the money that
it's
they
gonna
have.
It's gonna affect things even more, right? Because
Double
not
land
only
transfer.
let's go back to this $1 million house where land transfer is about 10 grand. Now you're paying 20 grand and your typical down payment, if you're putting 20% down, I'm aware you can put less, is 200 grand. So now you're at 220. Now you have, closing costs of lawyers and moving. And, if you're with a B lender, you have a lender fee. So now all of a sudden, like, you're up there. So for $1 million house, which isn't anything that special in our cities, $1 million house in Oakville gets you a falling down shack. You're paying 250 grand. And then you're carrying a mortgage every month of 7-8 grand. It's
crazy. And it's funny because you have to ask yourself, have the services in the city gotten better? Like, for example, in Old Oakville, where my dad used to live, they have all these signs now of people, they look like for sale signs. I think I mentioned this before on the show, but in that area, you pay anywhere from like 20 to 50,000 a year in property tax. It's very expensive. It's Old Oakville. Houses there are $4 million. Like, your assessed value, you're paying anywhere from like 20 to 50,000. Anyways.
Well, I guess so. If my property tax are $5 grand a month times 12, that's
$5 grand a year. Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, $5 grand a year. What am I saying? Yeah,
Yeah.
$5 grand a year.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So anyways, when I used to live there, when I was a kid and grew up there, leave the bike on the front lawn, the doors would be open, it wouldn't matter, right? It was safe. And now every single home, they've hired this company, it's called Dark Security, and everyone has it looks like a for sale sign, but it's like dark, it's like they all chipped in to hire someone to drive the streets at night to protect it. So your property taxes are, in a sense, you're paying for the service.
Right.
And I'm not blaming the police. I'm just saying, like,
Right.
are your services better? It's something as a taxpayer, you got to ask yourself.
It's a crazy world because growing up when I was in high school, so 14 to 18, let's call it, my sisters and I, neither one of us had keys to our house. So our parents
left the door open.
Yeah, our parents would leave for work, and if somebody locked it by accident, we'd be locked out of the house. And there was some
Ring
time,
on the doorbell.
there were some times where we couldn't get into our house, right? So we'd usually go through the side door. So eventually we put a keypad, but it was always open no matter what. Like
you never
nobody
have to
was
worry
home,
about
and
that,
the front door was open. Like you didn't lock your door. That was weird. Like why are you?
Yeah, why are you doing? Yeah, why are you
locking
locking
the door? Like what are you doing
Yeah,
inside? Right. So now you don't dream of it just because I heard even in Burlington, there's more home invasions. Obviously, car theft is huge.
Huge. The home invasion is scary, right? Like people just breaking into your house and coming to get your keys, which is crazy. But to piggyback off Hamilton, I was looking at the Toronto new proposal. I think it's about 7%. They want to raise property tax again. So Olivia Chow's raised them 3 years in a row. So if you take the combined tax hikes that she's done over the 3 years, it's over 20%. I think it was like 24%. Increase in your taxes. That's crazy.
Yeah. So you're paying tax on the money that you earn to put your down payment on a house. You're
scrape by just to, you're taxed everywhere. You
so
die, you're taxed. It's
you
just,
die, you're taxed.
When is it enough? And I know I'm venting.
Find the money somewhere. So did you see that proposed community that's like lakefront? I think it's closer to Etobicoke maybe, but it's like a massive project. It's made it beautiful.
Is it Port Credit?
Is it Port Credit? I think
they just built a huge one in Port Credit.
I didn't see. But it's things like that where it's like, okay, that's beautiful, but that's also extreme. And it falls on the homeowners too to pay for that. Like, I get it. It's beautiful. Would love to have that.
Yeah.
But also, is it necessary? Yeah. Is that the boardwalk and everything? Is that necessary? Like, I understand having those attractions and, you always want to be a high desired tourist area. Like, there's reasons for these things, but also at the expense of the homeowners that are, scraping by that, can't afford this extra money. Where does it come from? Because our salaries aren't increasing at the same rate. The salaries stay the same, if not decrease, because of the amount of people that want jobs. Now it becomes competitive. Now somebody's willing to take less. And then you have AI on top of that is replacing jobs. It just keeps getting worse.
The negative podcast. But I think it's just everyone's just tired of getting taxed so much. Like, you go to work, you get taxed on your income. Then, you buy a property because you think it's the right thing to do, and those taxes go up. And then you make an investment in something, and then they go and knock on the door. Oh, here's capital gain. You risk the money that you already paid tax on in an investment.
And then you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, and then you work so hard, and then here's a luxury tax, and here's tax on your gas that you go buy.
Luxury tax.
There's
more
you guys,
tax on.
You don't know how to manage money.
Cars over 120 grand. What?
Oh, anyways, all right. The last one here. So obviously, Trump gets sworn into the White House on Monday.
Oh, is it Monday?
Yeah, today's Tuesday, right?
Today's Tuesday.
Yeah. So less than a week.
Less than a week.
Trump gets inaugurated in. So the only person really doing a lot here is Danielle Smith, but hang on, I'll get into that. So the Bank of Canada is warning about the severe economic repercussions of a trade war could have on Canada, particularly focusing potentially imposing a 25 generalized tariff. According to a chart from NBC Economics and Strategy, if tariffs were to be implemented, Canada could see its GDP drop by 6%, marking one of the most significant economic downturns in recent history. TD Economics suggests that while Canada has managed trade tensions in the past, a drastic escalation could lead to an extended stagnation through 2025 and 2026, with GDP potentially being 2.4% lower by the end of 2026 compared to baseline estimates. So this could force the Bank of Canada to lower interest rates significantly, affecting the Canadian dollar and inflation rates. So people are scared of what's to come with Trump getting in and the tariffs that are most likely going to happen. It seems like Danielle Smith, who's the premier of Alberta, she went to a party at Mar-a-Lago that Kevin O'Leary invited her to.
Oh yeah,
because O'Leary's investing quite big in Alberta with pipelines, and I think AI data centers are really big.
Yeah,
it's going to be a new big thing. Yeah, because Alberta has a lot of energy. Obviously, it sounds like it's perfect, and it's got a cold, dry climate, which these rigs need to be cold. Yep. So it kind of works. So anyway, she was over there and she made a lot of good points, right? And even Pierre talked about this. So basically Canada sells crude oil to America, and it's a lot thicker than the oil that the Americans can drill for.
Okay.
So a lot of refineries in the US are set up for the thickness of the Canadian crude oil.
Okay. Makes sense.
Yeah.
So we produce the oil, give it to them to refine.
And they refine it. So we refine some.
Back to us. We don't have many refineries.
I'm not an expert, but we don't have many refineries. So, but this is what Danielle Smith said, which I found was interesting, that they send I think it was $100 million or $100 billion worth of crude oil to the States at a discounted price.
Okay.
and then they flip it for 300. So they 3x their investment.
Right.
So she was like, you know, it's a pretty good deal because they sell it at a discount to America. And obviously, what do we get in return?
Wouldn't Trump have thought about this and known?
Yeah, this is where you need to ask, like, what does Trump want?
Right.
Because like he's like, it's not like negotiating for a house.
Yeah.
You know, like when we negotiate for our clients, like it's listed at a certain price. It's probably fair market value. Like he's going for what he wants here, and he's hoping to land here.
Yeah.
If you can't see me,
right. But if you're going to throw out a threat like that, you got to know what ammo the other side has.
So the ammo is that Melanie Jolie, I forget, sorry, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. She's saying that Alberta, we're going to cut off oil to the States.
Okay.
Danielle Smith says, no, we're not. You can't say that because, you know, you don't have jurisdiction over our province.
Good.
And then she goes, I would encourage the minister to look at our pipelines. So I looked at it too. Okay. So the pipeline goes from out west down through Canada to Michigan. Yeah, and then back up to Sarnia, which feeds Ontario, and then it feeds Quebec. So if you cut off the pipeline, it cuts off part of the, you know,
the eastern. Like, we're gonna cut them off, so and not knowing it's cutting.
And I started laughing because, you know, Danielle Smith was being very facetious about it. But I mean, she makes a good point. Like, you should probably look at the pipeline. So apparently Trudeau and his government killed. It was called the Eastern Pipeline or something. I might be butchering it, because they wanted to make one from the west to the east to make it nice and seamless instead of it going down
Makes sense.
and then coming back across. So yeah, I think that Canada needs to really start looking. If you look at that, you know, we're sending 100 million or billion, I think it's billion, but I might be butchering it, $100 billion worth of crude oil to get refined somewhere else. Like, why don't we invest in a big refinery ourselves and sell it to other countries as well, right?
Right.
Not in a retaliatory way, but, you know, we could use that money.
Yeah, yes, we sure can.
Yeah. So anyways, I just don't know where this all goes. I think, like, it's going to be interesting to see Trump get in, how he reacts. Trudeau's still our prime minister, so he's going to be doing the negotiation for us. Yeah. And then it looks like Carney and Freeland are going to run. Yeah. I heard Christy Clark dropped out today.
Oh, did she?
So it's going to be Carney and Freeland running for the Liberals. My guess is that support for Liberals will increase
with a new
obviously
leader.
Yeah. But it won't be enough to even get rid of the Conservative majority. So we're going to have our election in, you know, late March.
March is when
they return.
And
then they have to campaign. Yeah. So yeah, late April, March.
Late April, May.
Sorry, May. And then, you know, then we have a new prime minister come in who's going to start negotiating. Yeah. It's just really bad timing.
Yeah. And so him getting in on Monday, I guess, even though Justin Trudeau is still our prime minister, they can't pass any legislation while Parliament's prorogued.
No, because they're not in there.
No, it's prorogued. They can't. Yes, he's still our prime minister, but he can't do anything. He's prorogued it. So,
and they have no support, right? Like, even like he has a minority. Mm-hmm. So even if he wants to get something through, he doesn't have the support of the Québécois or the NDP
right now.
Yeah,
so it's kind of scary. If you really think about it.
It's going to be an interesting couple months for sure, right? Yeah. And I think you know, I don't support Carney, but I think he's going to be a great face for them if he gets in. It's new. He's different. He actually speaks pretty well, you know, for the average person who is maybe leaning Liberal or NDP. So, you know, obviously they're going to gain more points, right? Like, you have a new fresh leader.
They will.
There's still a Liberal support in Canada. And like we said, the Liberal Party just needs to go back to center.
Totally. 100%. It went so far.
Yeah. The only thing with Carney is he does support and did support the carbon tax in the past. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to support someone who's going to make us focus on energy and like not kill those projects.
Yeah. So he was the Bank of, I guess, UK or whatever.
He was the Bank of Canada and Bank of England.
The Bank of England. So he's what?
I think he has a dual citizenship.
Oh, does he? Mm-hmm. Well, it would make sense.
Yeah, like me.
Are you have dual citizenship?
Yeah,
where?
I do. My mom was born in Northern Ireland, so I have my UK citizenship. Would have been the EU, but Brexit left. But
interesting.
Yeah, my mom got me that when I was young.
No way. Yeah. Northern Ireland is part of the UK, but Southern Ireland is not.
Yeah, it's very funny. Not a lot of people know that they have different currencies.
Yeah.
And
One
it's,
is the euro and one's the pound, right?
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So like when you say you go to Ireland or something and you go to Northern Ireland, the flag is actually not the green, white, and orange one. It's the British flag.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Wow, that's so interesting. Well, that's very good for you.
Not the England flag, but
Right.
it's red and blue.
Interesting. Okay, so if he was the Bank of England, whatever you call what Tiff Macklem is doing for us, I would like to know, because it seems like they're okay over there. I don't know much. I don't follow what's going on over there. There's too much going on here.
There's a lot of mess actually in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, like his success when he was the head of the Bank of Canada here and the head of England, is that what you said?
Bank of England. Yeah, he was the head of the Bank of England.
Want to see kind of his past to see
his platform and what he plans to do. The thing that is crazy is that they're going to have, he's saying he's running. He's running. We know you're going to have like a month campaign. Like, how do you get to know someone in a month, right? Like Pierre's Pierre's been in your face for years. Yeah. So it's tough but they're going to gain some votes. Like there's no doubt about it. And I support conservative, but I know they're going to gain seats.
Yeah, they will.
But yeah, I saw the Oakville MP, Anita Amon, she stepped down.
Wow.
Yeah. She's going back to the University of Toronto to teach.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Anyways, a lot of people stepping down. And
a lot of realtors stepping out of the business.
A lot of realtors stepping out of the business. Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that happening.
They're just throwing their hands up in the air.
Yeah. Yeah. And I this year is going to be, I think it's going to be a survival year for a lot of realtors. I don't think it's going to be like, crazy, let's go spend all of our money sort of year. But again, it's like, it's just certain people do business and certain people don't, right? Like you can't survive off 2 deals a year. It's just not going to happen. And
because it costs so much money to be a realtor. People don't know how much it costs us. My carrying costs. You laugh at me all the time.
I do, yeah. You send me these screenshots and start sweating.
God, some months are freaking wild.
Insurance and like all these costs that you have and like costs you have to eat if the listing doesn't sell and stuff like that. It's just tough. Yeah. It's not an easy business, especially now when, things aren't selling and like that, right? Yeah. It's a little bit different.
I reduced a couple of my listings to do bidding wars. Every time I do it, it works.
Yeah, you've had luck with that.
Yeah.
I think it's more just like for you, it's just like your seller wants this price, but they would take X, but they're not willing to go to X. You know what I mean? And then you go, okay, go a little bit lower. And then they kind of end up where they should have been the whole time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you had that one in Hamilton, right? And it was
yeah. So it's like, if you value it kind of around this one as an example, we listed it at $899. Realistically, it's between 8 and 9. It needed a lot of work. Okay. It was in Waterdown. So like somebody's going to come in and renovate it, right? So if you have it listed at $899 and you do the strategy of post the price, and that's fair market value, you're going to see negotiations happen, especially in a market like this where things aren't crazy busy. So you do expect it to come under, but it wasn't even attracting offers under that price. So you leave it for a little while. It's like, man, I got to increase showings. Then you reduce it $699 or $799. All of a sudden you have 5 offers and you get close to what you were listed at before, which is crazy.
It's not what you want to do, which is frustrating, like as a listing agent, like you don't want to like price it low. I never loved the strategy because, you just have more people coming in that maybe their max is $699. They think they're going to get it.
You need those offers to get the seller the highest.
Exactly.
So
what happens if
don't like when you do it, but you do well for your sellers.
You're hired by your sellers. So you have to do what you have to do. But what happens if they ever make offers open? You know what I mean?
Well, the
strategy would
open.
I know they can, but would the strategy work? I don't know. Right? I don't know if the strategy would work like
an auction.
Yeah.
No, it wouldn't.
I don't think it would work the same.
Wouldn't know because some people
I don't think so at all.
Way higher than the second place.
Yeah, 100%.
No, that wouldn't work. But yeah, it's seemingly working for me. But you see a lot of listings. I go through listings every day, and I'm like, you gotta be careful who you hire, because even the quality of photos, the stuff in the photos. Like I was in a house yesterday in Mississauga. Looked so nice. I'm like, this is perfect for my client. We're going to buy this before I went. And then I went to the house. The upstairs still impressed me. This is great. Then we go into the basement. And it's like, you couldn't move this stuff out. Like clearly they're moving, right? They had a garage. Move it to the garage. It was just an absolute pigsty. It's like, you're only selling your house for a period of 1 month.
Yeah.
Do the extra, put in 5 hours.
100%.
It's a turn off. And I'm like, and I was telling my buyer, I'm like, if I took this listing over, I would make this clear out, even if we hired my mover, like, right? Cleared this all out, put a little bit of staging work into it, repainted a couple little things, tiny minor touch-ups. It would have been sold because it was priced competitively. That's why I'm like, oh, we're going to buy this, until I got there. It's like, oh, and it does have that potential. It doesn't need a lot of work. Just clear your stuff, do these minor little touch-ups. And so you leave money on the table, especially in a market like this where you don't see bidding wars and buyers just wanting anything they can get their hands on. Buyers are picky. Buyers want a deal. So if they have reason to put in a low ball, don't give them all these reasons. Get a paintbrush.
You're right. You're totally right. Like I have the listing that I have coming up in Burlington. He's a guy and he's got this, sweet German Shepherd. It's such a sweet dog. Yeah. But they're dirty. They shed.
Hair everywhere.
And I went,
are a big thing.
Yeah. And I went in and I was like, look, man, like you're going to have to find a place for your dog. Cause it's just a 1-bedroom, right? I'm like, you're going to have to. He goes,
1-bedroom condo?
Yeah, 1-bedroom condo. And he's like, okay, I'll get it to my parents. And I was like, it's super important to do that, unless you're gonna like really stay on top of it. But
some people might not have
might not have the solution to it.
Which is okay. It just requires that extra cleaning. Obviously,
you're gonna have to clean every time. Yeah.
So you do the things that are necessary because you're only selling your house. You have one shot kind of thing. Yeah. Then history starts happening. You see price reductions.
I agree with you.
Listings can attract stigmas and become stale. You have one shot. So it requires you cleaning up after your dog and spraying it down and just fixing the towels and just making it nice. No shampoos all over the shower wall. Do these things.
100%.
It's making you money. So the hours you put in before your listing, I'm like, think about it like it's paying you. Because if I can get you an extra 10 grand, 15 grand, and I say put in 5 hours, 15 grand divided by 5, you're doing it if I'm paying you per hour. So you got to think about it like that, because I want them to be successful. Because that
just the stress too of like, okay, it's sold faster, it's not sitting
is stressful
around.
Like it's a lot.
It's so
and
hard,
I see some sellers, it's a massive thing that people go through selling their houses.
You can barely cook.
Yeah, so it is stressful, and you try to work with the sellers
as much
needs, and some people are like, nope, just please get it done, I can't handle this, and that's okay. But obviously
it's COVID. It's not COVID times, right? It takes effort to sell, which is the way it should be. But
because then it's really like the realtors that have skill.
Yeah.
Know what they're doing.
And just being honest too, right? Like I'm just honest as I can. Like this one would sell if your dog's shedding and you can see it all on your floors. He was good with it. He understands. So anyways, we yapped today. It was good. You got anything else?
You sure did. No.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thanks again for all the support and everything like that. Our sponsor, Chexy, is great. So check them out. If you go on their website, you can see basically how much you can make from your rent payments. They have a calculator on there. So check that out. It's awesome. Just to piggyback off the theme of us talking about rentals being down 3%. Check out Chexy and just see if it works for you. You don't have to get your landlord involved at all. You can do Aeroplan points. I was calculating it myself. It showed that, I have a wedding in Boston in September. It showed that I could pay for the flights there and back with the credit card points that I can get. You can also get cash back as well, which is great. Definitely check them out. It'll help your credit score, all that. I'll leave the first link down below in the description. We're super grateful that they wanted to sponsor the show, but we think they're great products. You guys can check them out. I use them as well. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. We appreciate it so much, and we will see you next week. Take care.